Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we are going to be doing an awesome deck profile of a deck that I think is very just fun to play in general and has some really cool artwork, and that is my Archfiend deck profile. But before we get to today's video, guys, I just want to give a shout out to your playmats. They are sponsoring this video. If you guys want to check out and support the channel as well, I will leave a code so that you can actually support the channel when you buy sleeves from your playmats. I've promoted them on this channel before. They are an amazing sponsor to have. They make really good quality sleeves. They also have playmats as well. But really, I think the quality of the sleeves, like I've said before, are very good. They're very nice. They protect your cards, and you get to custom design them, which is awesome. So yeah, House of Kaiba is the ones that I was able to get from your playmats, which was awesome. So thanks and shout outs to your playmats for sponsoring this video. Again, the code will be down below if you guys would like to support the channel and get some awesome stuff. So yes, guys, Archfiend deck profile, guys. This deck is really awesome and really fun to play around with. I have actually played this deck off and on for probably going on 4 or 5 years, actually. I used to play the chess Archfiends ages ago. I know they used to be, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, and I thought they were really cool, but they really weren't great. And then doing the Zexal era, we got the retrains of the Archfiends, and they've gotten support here and there throughout that time. I know Summon Skull is an Archfiend, but I kind of run that as its own deck, which you will probably be seeing an update probably around Halloween again this coming year. So, but for right now, I just wanted to do a deck profile on the Archfiends themselves. They're super fun to play with. I would say that while they are a very good archetype, they are not super competitive. However, I would say they're an amazing deck to take, and play at your locals with your friends and buddies, and they have a very distinct mechanic on how they do things. The boss monster of the Archfiends, guys, if you're not too familiar, is the Archfiend Emperor, the First Lord of Horror. I can never say horror right anytime I do an Archfiend deck profile. That is like a given for the last 4 years. I can never roll my R's properly since I was a wee young Seto Kaiba in love with Blue Eyes White Dragon. But horror, yes, first Archfiend, First Lord of Horrors. He pretty much can destroy stuff. He can get out into the field. You can also use him for link fodder. He's kind of your beater of the deck to some degree if you get him out properly. But he also can be spot removal as well, which is nice. But yeah, 3 of him. Next up, we run our 3 Archfiend Commander, which I really feel like when this card came out, this really just helped out the Archfiend mechanic as a whole for the different things you could do. If you guys are not familiar with Archfiend Commander and his usages, he can reborn level 6 monsters if you tribute summon him, but he's also a special summoner that you can bring out to the field to destroy things and trigger their effects off, which is great. Because, say for example, let me just read it to you guys briefly. If you control an Archfiend card, you can summon this card from your hand, but it can't attack this turn. You can special summon Archfiend Commander once per turn this way. When special summoned this way, target one Archfiend card you control, destroy it. That target. When this card is tribute summoned, you can target one level 6 monster from your graveyard, special summon that card in face-up defense position. So you can tribute summon off to get reborn a level 6 Archfiend, which is cool. I know some people focus more on that and go for level 6 Exceed plays a little bit more, which is cool. Utopia Beyond is an okay card, but I mainly use him for his effect to bring him out into the field to use for link summon fodder, beat stick fodder, and in addition to that, to destroy and trigger off your Archfiend effects, which is kind of cool. So pretty basic there for what he does, but he really helps the deck overall, I feel like, and he pretty much brings the entire mechanic together. Next we have one Archfiend Empress. Archfiend Empress is probably the most expensive card in this entire deck, believe it or not, guys, because this thing came out of Starstrike Blast. I got this thing from a trade like ages ago, and I think it's like a $7, $8 card still. Maybe more. I got it for $2, and that was expensive even at that time because nobody used it. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Starstrike Blast has all these expensive cards, and if you have anything that's from Starstrike Blast, there's a good chance at some point in Yu-Gi-Oh's history it was worth something, aka Vanity's Emptiness, the short print common. But what does Archfiend Empress do? Well, I'm going to read it to you guys very briefly. And the reason I'm going over these cards, even though they're an older archetype, is because a lot of people do not know how they all function together and their mechanic. If exactly one face-up Dark Fiend monster on the field, except this card will be destroyed, you can remove from play one Dark Fiend monster from your graveyard. Instead, when this card is destroyed and sent to the field to the graveyard, you can select one level 6 or higher Fiend type monster in your graveyard, except Archfiend Empress, and special summon it. So while you may think the getting rid of and banishing stuff is a downside, that's not. You can easily bring things back. And also the Reborn ability is really awesome. She has some decent attack and 29,000 attack, so she also can put in work for you. And granted, she is a little bit situational, and she does have built-in protection to some degree. But I would not run her more than one of, personally. I've seen people run her as a 2 of in the past. I'm more keen on running her as just a simple 1 of. Next up we have, guys, is we have 3 Archfiend Aerys. Aerys is kind of your searcher for the deck, and helps you do a lot of different things along with Archfiend Cavalry. Aerys, if you guys are not familiar, has been played in multiple different decks, be it in Infernity, which it pretty much got really popular with Infernity because of this card and it being able to search out Archfiend. Infernity Archfiend. But even for a time, we did run this in Gravekeepers. Not Gravekeepers, oh gosh. Dark World for a hot moment. But mainly it was used with Infernities, and that's how this card became popular, along with Labyrinth. But outside of that, in its own archetype, it's still very useful. And it's simple to get this card's effect off. The cool things are you can use it as tour guide fodder, which is awesome. And it can get its effect off, trigger it off by a certain card that recently got reprinted, actually. And nobody understands that this actually works. Number 49, Fortune Tune. Fortune Tune will actually trigger off your Archfiend Aerys' effect because of its ability. People say, nope, that doesn't work like that. Look up your card rulings, and I've even talked to judges about this multiple times throughout the last 4 years of me playing this deck. It does work. Fortune Tune does trigger off your Archfiend Aerys, which is cool, but it can stall you out a little bit. But that's perfectly fine because then you can do things with Fortune Tune into some crazy things, which is kind of fun. But yep, 3 Archfiend Aerys, staple of the deck. Along with Archfiend Aerys, we also run your Archfiend Cavalry. Cavalry, I feel like, is a staple 3 of. This card is very useful. I think he looks super awesome, by the way. Like, he's one of my favorite artworks for Archfiends. Probably next to Force Lord of Horror. I think he's really cool, too. But Archfiend Cavalry, if you guys don't know what it does, if this card is on the field is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one Archfiend monster in your graveyard except Archfiend Cavalry. Special summons that target. It can't attack this turn. That's perfectly fine, I find. I know you're probably reading some of these cards, you're like, wait, it can't attack this turn. Granted, back in the day, that was not as good, but nowadays we have links and we have exceed plays we can go into, which make these effects not as bad as you may think. Granted, if you want to keep a big monster on board, hey, that's perfectly fine. If you want to side deck tech options in, which we'll talk about here in a second, you could do that too and use those big monsters you're bringing back for your virus targets, which is cool. But he's going to pretty much reborn stuff and help you go off on some certain combo plays. Very staple cards, so your Searcher and your Reborner for the deck. Some people like running 2 of this Cavalry, but I like 3 of each, I find, over the time I've played this deck. TransArch Fiend is a little bit slow, but it's very useful in its ability to do things. Number 1, it can get things, your Archfiends engraved, trigger off effects, which is kind of cool. But also it can bring things back from the Banished Zone, Banished Pile, wherever that Banished Zone exists in our Yu-Gi-Oh! Playmat. I don't know. It doesn't exist. It could be over here, over here, over here. I don't know. That's a joke in Yu-Gi-Oh! But TransArch Fiend is really good in this deck. It also can help precipitate level 4 exceed plays, which is kind of cool. So it's a debatable card to run in an Archfiend deck. I've seen people run different things like Battle Fader, which I used to run in this deck. You could also run alternative cards. Maybe you want to run some more spot removal. So maybe you run 3 Lightning Storm. You could replace that in your deck and play around with your ratios. There's different cards you can run in this deck, guys, but that's up to you to decide. I find that TransArch Fiend is really useful. I've taken it in and out throughout the years, but I find that going forward, I'm probably going to keep it as a 2 of unless we have some more Archfiend support come out directly to help the deck. Next up, we have Double Tour Guide. You don't need to run triple in this deck because while you can go for a lot of basic, generic level 3 Exceed monsters, I feel that more than 3 of is a little bit too much. In addition to that, I do run the obligatory Scarm. You can run Farfa if you want to in this deck, and maybe I've seen some people take more of a Burning Abyss route, but then I've always find when you do that, it's becoming more of a Burning Abyss deck or a Burning Abyss, Phantom Knight, Archfiend deck, which is just weird, but it actually does work. But that's what I'm trying to say. I didn't want to make it too much into that. So I kind of, Farfa is something I tried out, but I found that I already had enough targets because I have Archfiend, Aerys, and I got Scarm, so it's up to you to play around with those ratios and decide what you want to do. Scarm's nice, it deck thins, etc. It's a Fiend, benefits to that. And then Tour Guide can help set up different plays, which is awesome. So you can play around with your ratio of what you want to do with those cards. But you could either run 2 Tour Guide, 3 Tour Guide, play around with your ratios in your deck, take things out. It's up to you. I also wanted to run a couple of hand traps. You could run 3 Ash Blossom. You could run whatever you really want to, actually. You could run Ghost Ogre if you want to run a different option, guys. You could run Lightning Storm in your deck if you want to. You could run Drill and Lockbird if you want to. There's a multitude of different things you can use instead of your 3 Ash Blossom. Infinite Impermanence is a perfect thing to run in this deck because the deck doesn't have a lot of built-in negation, so that is another option. Some people take more of a virus route with this deck, so they'll run things like Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which is a great card. I used to actually run that in the main, but I have found that while it is a great card, it's a better card in the side deck to come out of, because certain matchups it's going to be really good, and certain matchups it's not going to be as good, or even useful, really. Because maybe they don't run a lot of spells. So it just depends. So that's why I took that out, put 3 Ash Blossom in the deck, because Ash Blossom's going to hit everything. And it doesn't take setup like Eradicator does, even though that setup is very easy to accomplish. Next, I run some draw cards for the deck. So we run our 3 Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is going to help you draw pretty much, as you guys have seen in this deck profile. 90% of your monsters are pretty much dark attributes except Ash Blossom, which is a hand trap, so does that really count? I also run 2 Trade-In. I don't find that triple Trade-In is necessary in this deck, but double Trade-In is good because you can set things up for grade and reborn it back and draw cards. Because this deck, while it doesn't brick, it can sometimes get very awkward hands that are not optimal, and you want to be able to draw to your stuff a little bit more. So Allure of Darkness, great because you're all you have all darks. Don't worry about banishing your cards because you can easily bring them back from Leveneer the Sea Dragon, or this, or that, or TransArch Fiend. There's a large thing of things you can do, and a couple cool little plays you can do depending upon what you draw into. And trading, like I said, you're setting things up in graveyard and getting draw power. So awesome there. In addition to that, we run 3. I'm so happy they made this back in Astro Pack a Hollow, but 3 Falling Down. This card is pretty much Snatch and Steal for the deck, which is great. You can easily steal your opponent's stuff, do things with it. It's a very staple card, guys. Like, it's a built-in Snatch and Steal for the deck, which initially is what drew me to this deck as a kid. But as time went on, and Snatch and Steal came back. I remember back a couple of years ago, it's been a while now, but it did come back for that one format, remember? And then they quickly banned it. It made me actually revisit this deck because of that, actually. So that's how I got into this deck, actually. I was like, ooh, I forgot Falling Down's a card, after having a conversation with my buddy, and that's how I rebuilt this deck. But 3 Falling Down. Next, we run 3 Labyrinth. Or Archfiend Labyrinth. Like I said, you've probably seen this card if you've played any Infernity deck over the course of the last couple of years, but it's up to you to decide the ratio. I find that Labyrinth, while it is searchable through different means, is very essential to this deck, and you want to get to it as best as possible. Now, granted, saying all this, I know some people like running different versions of Archfiend decks. I know I didn't mention that at the beginning of this video because I'm pretty much running the newer age Archfiends, but some people like running Pandemonium instead of this. Or I've seen people in the past run maybe 2 Labyrinth and a Pandemonium. It's up to you to decide if you want to go down that route. Me personally, while Pandemonium's okay, it's not amazing. And a Labyrinth, I feel like, does a little bit more for this deck nowadays. If you're running more of the OG Archfiends, yeah, probably go more towards Labyrinth. But if you're running more of the new age ones, yeah, you can tech 1 or 2 out into the deck. But I just found that Archfiend Labyrinth does enough for me, and it's searchable through terraforming, so I have additional search power. And so instead of just running maybe 2 of it and not a terraforming and making space for other things, I can use those search fiends off of Aerys, etc. to search out other combo pieces, and then because I already have Labyrinth in hand. So it's up to you to decide, but I just wanted to discuss that for a moment. Next we ran 1 Foolish Burial, pretty straightforward. We have multiple targets for it. 1 Monster Reborn things back, go for Exceeds, go for Link Fodders, things of that nature. Pretty basic spells there, guys. That's about all we run. You can run Call by the Grave if you want to, but that's up to you. We do run 3 Call of the Archfiend. I think this is a staple in this deck card. Hands freaking down. This card is a staple 3 of in this Archfiend deck. But in addition to that, I also ran to run 2 Call the Haunted. Now, you could run other cards instead of Call the Haunted, but the ability to dump things in the graveyard and bring them back and use them as either a beat sticks, use them as link fodder, exceed fodder, etc., is very useful because this deck can dump monsters to the grave and bring back these big monsters and do things with them, which is really cool. So this deck can really, put a lot of pressure on the board fairly quickly, I've found. Now, depending upon how you want to play your deck and change things up, maybe you want to run some other cards. But I have found that this actually works out pretty well. This is searchable, which is great. And then Call of the Haunted, I just wanted a little bit more of it. So that is the main deck as a whole. We'll quickly into the extra deck, guys. It's pretty basic, I would say, overall, my extra deck, in what it does. So we have 1 Frigida. Because this deck is over 9,000 when it can come to power. But we run your basic level 3s. You run your Dante of the Burning Abyss. Leveneer the Sea Dragon is a staple in this deck because you have banished things, you can bring them back. The Phantom Knight of Break Swords, generic level 3 remover. It's pretty straightforward. And then lastly, number 49, Fortune Tune, because of its ability to trigger off Aerys, etc. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you can go either talk to a judge friend or look it up online for more clarification of how that works. Number 41, Bagasucha and Tornado Dragon. You can run other cards if you want to, but I just want to run generic stuff for in case I get bad hands and more backward removal. We also run number Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, which you can probably understand why I'm running this in this deck because of the ability to go for so many Exceeds. As for links, we run a good amount of them. We run Salaman Great Almirage. This is an optional card you can run in the deck. I'm playing around if I want to run it or not, but it does help out. We run 2 Master King Archfiend. Master King Archfiend's really good, actually, guys. So I would highly suggest trying this out in the deck as a 2 of. You can play around with it, though, if you want to. We also run 1 IP Masquerena as in this deck because of the ability to go for so many different links. 1 Nightmare Phoenix. You don't really have to worry about Cerberus, but you can run it if you want to, if you're afraid of a Floodgate monster, but I'm more afraid of back row. 1 Nightmare Unicorn to spin things back. We also run 1 Blackluster Soldier of Chaos, which you can get its effects off really nice in this deck fairly easily. And then 1 Axis Kotarker. And you're probably going, wow, this deck just got super expensive. I know. But I have the cards, I'm going to run them, and they should get reprinted soon for some of you guys to have better access to Axis Kotarker, and especially Zeus. Maybe this guy eventually. But hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit long. I wanted to discuss this deck in depth because I love it so much. And it's one of my just fun decks that I've always had a little bit of a passion to play, because it's just such a fun old school deck that Konami completely revived, and it's just a fun deck to play at locals against your buddies and have a lot of fun with. So till next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and remember, guys, if you want to support the channel, feel free to check out your Yu-Gi-Oh! Your playmats. The code will be down below. But thank you guys for watching. Remember to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and I'll see all of you guys next time. Take care, everybody.